Hey YouTube, Rick Marks here. I'm going to touch on a topic which I don't think too many talk about, and that is loneliness. Now, leadership can be very lonely, and loneliness can also impact on the leader's performance as well. And I think they're all components that need to play a very strategic role in the balance. Because if you're a leader that's feeling loneliness, that impacts on you, it impacts on your team, it impacts on your performance. But I think it's a lonely place often, and it depends what type of leader, I guess, you are. Whether you're a manager as such and your staff see you dictate down to them more so than leading them from the front, or whether you feel lonely because you don't have peers. And now I've been there myself, where for quite a while I didn't have many equals to me. So I found it quite a challenge in order for me to feel I had somebody I could talk with on the same plane in the org structure, because I had my reports under me and I had my managers above me. I didn't have that same connection. And it can get lonely, it can get really hard. When you haven't got that person, you can bounce ideas, thoughts, challenges, because they're in the same environment and they're probably either dealing with the same issues or similar issues, and they're aware of customer restraints and all the environmental impacts. But I think it's important also to balance between loneliness and then moving into the grounds of having your staff as friends and moving them into a place where you're feeling your loneliness and seeking that in your reports, and the same upstream into managers. Once you start crossing those lines, you start to move to a place where it can be quite difficult for you to manage and to do your job efficiently. Now, I'm not saying don't be friendly with them, but it's talking about all those deeper topics, all those challenges that you're facing. And going to your manager is not an issue with these, and they're obviously able to help you to work through them. But generally, you don't want to take your grievances, and I see it a lot with, I guess, junior managers or people who are new to leadership, is that they don't understand audience. And I think that's the biggest part of it, is understanding there are things you don't talk about with your team. There are things that you've been enlightened to as management here, about direction, about issues, etc., etc. And you need to have filtration on that. And I have seen in the past instances where that's not been the case, and I've seen people who have crossed the line, which then makes it hard because they've entrusted their information they've been provided to people who it's not privied yet. Now, again, above my pay grade, there's plenty of different terminologies that are used, but I am aware that there is stuff happening above me that I'm not aware of. And this happens in work, but it also happens in personal life. Name it, the government, for instance. There's lots going on which we don't know about, don't need to know about, but don't want to know about at this point, because it's not impending, causing, creating issues on me. So why worry myself when it may not even eventuate, or it may not grow to a problem I need to deal with? So understanding and realizing that, and then knowing that when it does need to be made aware, I'll be made aware. And it's not a naivety, it's not, burying my head in the sand. It's a reality that if I let every single possible thing in the world worry me and cause stress and anxiety and have me on the edge of my seat, I'm not going to be living. Because like you see it often, it's those that are unencumbered by the world who are actually out there living their best life. They're traveling the world. They're living a stress-free because they've reduced the amount that they allow to impact on, bother their world, essentially. So I implore to the audience and you to think about loneliness, and to understand that we all have to deal with being lonely. There are times where, again, like I talked about previously, solitude, where we need to be still, we need to be quiet, we do need to be lonely. But we also need to utilize that to our advantage, to gain insight and to gain awareness, to gain a perspective even, so that we can then lead further on. And there are plenty of references throughout the Bible. Again, whether you believe or you don't believe, that's entirely up to you. But you know, when they were still in still moments where they actually gained insight, they allowed God to work with them, for instance, or God to even speak to them. If again, you want to believe it, if you don't, there are plenty of other references out there. But we need to look at that and go, why is solitude so important? Biblically, historically, even when you look at some of your greats. I was reading the other day, like Abraham Lincoln was very much a man of his thoughts, and he loved his alone time. He liked quietness and the solitude, which helped him work out what he needed to do next. So whether you look at it biblically, whether you look at it historically, it doesn't matter, because it's when you're alone with your thoughts, you allow even yourself room to breathe. And I guess that's the biggest part in this built up society. Everything's so rushed. We have to answer now. We have to respond to this now. Everything is now. We've almost diluted our quality down because we're not actually gaining perspective. We're not actually getting the goods, because we're either not allowing God or the universe or whatever to provide for us. We're too busy worrying about all these other things, what people might think, what others might say. It does, like, all those other factors, rather than just being still. And it's easy for us to get caught in that momentum and get caught in that wind. But just find some 5 minutes, 10 minutes where you can just be still with your thoughts. And it does take time, it does take practice, where you get thoughts that come and try to sneak in whilst you're just being still, being quiet. And they'll still try to bug you, and eventually you get to a place where you can just be quiet. And that is one of the best parts I enjoy about swimming, is when you're underwater, all that I can think about is next breath. Stroke, 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 next breath. Stroke, stroke. And that, do you know what I mean? I don't have room to think about what's for dinner, to think about this, to think about that, to think. My thoughts have to be clear, because I have found that when I start to think, that take in water instead of air, I get out of synchronization and I lose the pattern. And so, yeah, I implore that to you guys. Have a great day. Thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Hit subscribe, and you'll see me on the next video. Bye.